Hey there, you guys, and welcome to Real Estate Divas. I'm Jaylee Thompson with Texel Real Estate, and
I'm Kristen Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage Investments.
we're excited to be here with you today. We're going to talk about a pretty popular, you probably heard it a lot.
That's me.
We're gonna talk about the BRRRR method. So the BRRRR
And
method.
how many R's is that? That's 4, right?
4 R's. Yeah, BRRRR.
Right.
So some of you may have heard it and you're like, what is this exactly? It's not that complicated.
No. And it's been a while. It's been around for a while.
Yeah, everybody's, today acronyms. Everybody's using acronyms, so here we go with the BRRRR
But
method.
I like that they gave it a kind of a fun name.
Yeah,
like
it
this.
is. You can sit there and kind of make fun of it and whatever.
So what does it stand for?
It stands for you buy the property, you rehab the property, you rent the property, then you refi and repeat.
And then repeat. I'm like, we got one more.
We got one more. What's that? Yeah, what's that fourth one? You're going to repeat. So it's a pretty simple process. It's a pretty simple concept. It does usually take some money, to get into this process, just to put it out there, unless you get super creative, which we're not talking about today, but you're going to need some money in order to get in there. And the best way to do it is private money or your own money, really and truly.
And back in the day when I got started, I fell into this kind of backwards. Before there was anything called BRRRR, I used to call it refi cash outs.
Yep.
And 2005 to mid 2008, that's how I got 61 doors.
Dang.
By using this method. And I did it with no cash back then.
Yeah, it was a little different back then.
We're going to discuss it. There's some creative methods at the end on how to get around these loopholes that were created after 2008. But yeah, if you're looking to pick up doors and get to that level very
scale.
Quickly,
that's what this is about. It's about scaling
and scalability. Yes, and being able to buy, and once you tap in and you find an area that you know what those numbers are going to be, and you know what you have to buy it to get it to appraise at that amount.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what this one comes down to. Whereas, when you're doing a rehab or you're doing a rental or something like that, there's a little wiggle room, I mean, you don't have to be spot on. This one, you really want to be spot on. You want to shy away from hard money lenders on this one just because of the rules and regulations that are set up now.
Although I used to do it with hard money.
Yeah.
So if you can get a little creative with how fast you're paying money back, it does work. I mean, when I was doing it, it was fast. And so I never made a payment to my hard money lender because I had it refinanced
so quickly
before. So, yeah.
But the rules and regulations, just to be clear, have changed since then.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a couple of more. Of course, there's more red tape to jump through now. But let's go ahead and talk about the buy. So when you're buying, the first and foremost, what you need to remember is buy it right. I mean, that's key in this process. You've got to buy it right. You've got to know your numbers. So you want to be able to have access to people that are pulling comps. What are you buying it at? You need to know what rental rates are. You've got to really have it planned out. This is not a winging it type of, method.
If you want to get out without a lot of skin in the game.
Exactly.
When you're done, because that's once you're done with the repeat and you've got this set up, the idea is that you are out of pocket little to no money.
Exactly. You don't want any money sitting in that property. That means you didn't exactly buy it right, or your rehab went over, or something wasn't right. I mean, a lot of the time you're going to have a little bit of money in there, but you don't want $40,000 sitting in one property that now you can't get out unless you just flat out sell it or wait 5 years, and refi it again. So that's not the process we're looking at. We're looking at scalability, and that means planning and strategizing and knowing your numbers.
Excellent. And so the next thing is rehab.
So
rehab costs also need to be dead on. And you how much do you build in for your error?
I think what I would do with this, just because the rehab on this is going to be a little bit different. You're going to end up renting it, but you also got to keep in mind that somebody's going to come by and appraise it too. And so you want it a little higher grade than just your rental rehab grade. So keep that in mind.
That also depends on your neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's one of those, it depends. And that goes back to buying it right, knowing your numbers, doing that.
My favorite neighborhood that I ever did this in is the one that I call the cigarette neighborhood, where all the streets are named after packs of smokes in Dallas. And some of you are going, oh yeah, I know that place, like west of 35, south of 30 in Dallas Marble. It's not that neighborhood. It's the one that's Lucky, Camel, Cool, Kool.
Oh my goodness.
And Pall Mall. And I owned houses on all of them, but I knew that I could buy them super cheap, that they were stripped, that I'd have to go and rewire, replumb. But I knew what they would appraise at afterwards, and they were basic rental grade.
Yeah.
So I could put sheet vinyl in the kitchens and bathrooms. I could have just regular carpet. All my walls were basically white. The kitchen cabinets were nothing fancy.
You didn't have to do any designer touches or anything like that.
No, but they were also newer homes, and they were all brick. So I was doing homes that were, back in 06, 07, were built in like 2005.
Oh, dang. So new.
They were basically new
homes. For that neighborhood especially.
Yes.
Yeah. So going back to the buy it right, and know your neighborhood. Really do your homework on this so you know what that rehab needs to look like. Because remember, if you're planning right, then you know what it needs to refi at in order to get all your money out and hopefully make a little bit to put towards the next one.
Well, and when you get good at this and you're finding multiple in a neighborhood, I was doing like 5 to 8 at a time. So I would have some rehabs that were spot on and great, and then all of a sudden we'd have an unforeseen thing like the neighbors coming in and removing the wire that you put in that day.
Oh, I love that.
Right? Like and we found
the copper wiring
that it was the next door neighbors watching, through, and then we hung up blinds and did other security measures. But so like when you're rewiring twice, that's going to jack your prices up. So yeah, I used to put in about a 20% hold, just like over, but
well, anywhere from 15 to 20 just to CYA. We want to make sure that you've got that. If you need that cush and you're not doing this on a regular basis, you definitely need that cush. Right. And I would go for the 20% as far as like your cushion for that rehab.
Yeah.
I know that I just did one, and I definitely needed that cushion because I went in there and I didn't think the foundation was that bad. It wasn't that bad. And I'm like, okay, here we are. This is going to be about $4,000, maybe $5,000.
How much was it?
$9,000 later.
Okay.
So almost double, I mean, luckily it didn't break the deal, but it definitely didn't help,
Right.
So I'm not a foundation expert. But, again, it's one of those things, build in that little cushion.
Excellent.
So the next part. Little comments from the peanut gallery over there. So anyway, then after you've done the rehab, then
you're going to find a renter for it.
Yeah. And if you've done your homework, then what you're doing is what rental rates are for a nice rehabbed property in that area.
And I was only doing Section 8. So I knew that my 3 bedrooms were commanding $9.95 a month, and I knew that the 4 bedrooms were $12.95 a month.
There you go. I mean, really and truly, and in every neighborhood, just like comps when you purchase a property, has the average rental rate as well. If you're having a hard time coming up with those rental rates, and maybe there's not a lot of rentals in that neighborhood, then that should be something that scares you away a little bit with this method. But, just broaden that search, try to compare them. But what it boils down to is you want to make sure that rental rate is premium rental for that property, for that size of property, for that rehab, because your refi is going to really hinge on what rental rates you're getting.
So, and the nice thing when I was doing this, because there were no regulations really in banking back then, I was refinancing immediately. Now, I knew what interest rate I was going to get because, again, I was doing these, I was refinancing one almost every week, if not every other week.
And that means that you had all your documents in order, everything. It was systematic. And anybody who's been through a refi or has bought a house, you know how many documents are called for. All those personal documents. And if you're buying it personally and not in an LLC, which we'll talk about later, but even in an LLC, there's a lot of, I mean, the refi isn't lickety split in this day and age. You need all these documents, all these qualifying documents. So that's why you really need to plan. And now, if you're doing something that's a government-backed loan, so you're doing a conventional loan, most likely, FHA, they do have them out there for, they are offering now some FHA loans that are
but they can't,
investor loans.
Which is funny to me because FHA is for first-time home buyers.
There's somebody was just reaching out to me the other day about
and saying,
I've got investor loans that are FHA. So they're offering some of
doesn't even make sense to me, but
But the point is if it's a government-backed loan, it's going to take 6 months. 6 months, you have to have that property. You have to own that property for 6 months before you can refi it. And so you want all that documentation ready to go the moment that day.
And I would love to know out there, does anybody know about any non-government backed loans that are just, because I was going through a broker he's awesome guy. His name's Neil Merritt. He ended up running Sherman Bridge for a while after 2008. But he had insights to just these mortgage banks that were just lending and lending and lending and didn't have restrictions on numbers or amounts. That's one thing that everybody needs to know. If you're going to be doing this a lot, you're only allowed 3 or 4 on your credit
as an individual
with a Fannie or Freddie loan.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you have a place to warehouse these. So even if you're going conventional, it's not always the best plan. Talking to a small bank, telling them what you're doing, and getting a warehouse line where you can refinance them onto that. And you might be surprised. Again, I don't know specifically of anybody doing this, but you might be surprised that their regulations are going to be different for how long you have to hold it.
Yep. Well, and like you just asked, anybody out there who has who's a private lender or is
has a connection, who's a wholesaler or an investor who has been borrowing from somebody.
Yeah, that is willing to give up that. A lot of wholesalers and people already doing it, they don't exactly want to give up that source very often.
Investors will.
But
they're like, hey, I'm borrowing from this people and they only require 30 days,
So if you can find that is awesome. Then you don't have to wait that 6 months. The biggest holdup most of the time with this one and new investors that are out there that want to get into real estate, even though this is scalable, you do need money and you need it for 6 months. That's the reason hard money typically is not the best route, because that's 6 months of those high interest rate payments
before you can
refi it and get that lower interest rate.
But it is, 6 months is only 6 months.
True.
And I always say, if you want people to continue to lend to you, have money sitting in a savings account.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you've got money that's just sitting there, they're like, oh, look, they've got cash.
True.
People again, like cash. They like seeing cash, and they like seeing seasoned cash, not cash that you just moved in from, your mom's account and go, oh, look at all the money I had, and then they transfer it out the next day. No, they want to see, 2 to 3 months bank statements that have cash sitting there. So
So just know, going in, that's why we kept saying buy right, know your rehab costs, know your exit strategy, have everything in line, because if you don't have an in with a private lender, or you don't have, somebody else that you can refi this property with, then you're stuck with the property for at least 6 months with a high interest rate.
Yeah.
If you're not using your own cash. So be aware of that. And then the next thing is repeat. So you've refied it. You take your money out. Now, if it's a conventional loan, they're only going to give you 70%. So that means, you bought it for $100,000. and then you put that money in there, they're only going to give you 70, or let's say you did the rehab for ease of numbers, 100,000 after the rehab, and it gets appraised for 100,000. Well, okay, they're going to give you 70. That means if you didn't do it right, if everything cost more than $70,000, then you've got money sitting in that property.
Right.
So that's just something that you need to consider when going this route. But if you know your numbers and you do your due diligence and you know your exit strategy, then you can, maybe you end up getting it appraised for somewhere closer to 120 because you finished it outright. Or even if you did 100 and you were able to save money somewhere else, because you bought it right and the rehab was spot on. It's a great scalable method that's out there that's been around a long time, but we're calling it the Burr.
We're calling it the Burr Method, which I like. When I was doing refi cash outs, oh my gosh, I could not buy property fast enough.
Yeah,
I just constantly putting offers in, and how do you end up? Everybody's like, how do you end up with 61 doors in 3.5 years? This method is how you do it.
Not a bad method. Back in the day.
Back in the day.
To be back in the day.
And I was taking possession on day one. I usually had my demolition guys over there at dawn. Even though I might not have been closing until like noon or 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's done. Then I was bringing in, my electricians, my plumbers, getting all of that done. Then my sheetrock guys, then painters, and I had a crew for every single one, and I would just move them from property to property.
Well, when you're doing that many, and then like you said, now it's systemized, so it's like you could do it in the dark.
And you know exactly what they're going to charge you,
mm-hmm.
and they're not complaining. They, we're not even. You stop bidding things after a while.
Yep.
You're like, oh, well, isn't this the same thing? I know what a 3-bedroom is. I know what a 4-bedroom is. They're all about the same square footage, and you can just churn and burn going down. So yeah, it would take about 14 days working every single day. I never skipped weekends, but it'd be like 14 days of renovations. Then I would bring in
the renters,
appraiser.
Oh,
they would appraiser, right? I already had I had lists of Section 8 tenants, ready to come in and rent. And so I'm like, okay, I've got this one. You want to see it? Do you have your packet? They show me they have their packet. Okay, great. I'll fill out the paperwork. Because that would take another 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
To get.
Yeah, but you're talking about speedy. I mean, we're not talking 6 months on that one. We're talking about within, less than 30 days, you've refied it and moved on.
Yeah. And I'm on to the next one in less than 30 days. So I was never making a hard money payment.
Nice.
I was just paying them off. The other great thing, which we're going to get into creative ways to kind of replicate this, but I was buying at around 30, putting 20 into it. So I'm all in at around $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes 55, but try to be right in at 50. It would appraise for $90,000.
Nice.
And then I would have a refinance for all of mine were at $63,000, which was 70% of ARV. So I would walk with a check for everyone that I finished for $13,000.
Nice.
Putting no money into this whatsoever. Yep.
$13 grand, and now you have also an income producing property.
Right.
Yep.
That I'm making. I'm cash flowing $400 to $500 a month on.
Yep.
Every month.
Which is this. I mean, that's exactly what you want to do. Granted, she's talking about where she didn't have to. There weren't quite the rules and regulations, but there are ways to get creative.
And I'm wondering if people could, we're going to talk about creative methods, but doing things like lines of credit. Yeah. I mean, if you had a line of credit with a bank and could do that and just maybe hold it on the line for a really cheap interest rate before you were able to go in and refinance.
That would be a sweet deal.
It would be a very sweet deal to be able to do this. But yeah, so you research and you're finding this way, which I'm kind of going, huh?
Yeah, I'm looking into this more, but yeah, I dove
We
pretty
are not
deep.
attorneys.
We are not attorneys.
Go
We
get
are
an
not
attorney.
tax accountants.
Before you do this, don't say
Yeah.
Jaylee and Kristen said.
Yeah. We are specifically saying talk to your attorney, talk to your tax accountant. But here's a method that I found very, very interesting, and it makes sense. Although immediately red flags were flying the moment I looked into it. I was like, "What is going on here?" But it's so interesting that I dove a little bit deeper, and it it pans out, but like I said, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a tax accountant, so you want to be open and upfront with your tax attorney, or your tax accountant and your attorney, and then also the bank that you end up working with, whatever mortgage bank lender that you're working with. It's all about being upfront and completely honest about your dealings and that sort of thing. So the creative method that I was looking into is basically where you go and still need money. You still need to have your own cash money. Is you take your money, or private money that you've borrowed, and you've got your LLC, and you purchase it with your LLC. So you purchase a property cash
With your LLC.
with your
Got it.
LLC. That part is very, very important. It has to be with your LLC because the government and banks view LLCs. There are different rules and regulations for LLCs versus personal. And then also there are different,
Are these single member LLCs? Do they say that mattered?
they didn't say that mattered as long as whoever you end up selling it with is not a part of that LLC.
Okay, so very important. That does mean single member.
Yeah.
Well, you can be the only. You can't.
You can have other partners, but you can't sell it to them.
Right. Got it.
So getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. So basically what this is you've got an LLC, you find the perfect property, you've done your due diligence, you're like, all right, I'm going to purchase it cash with that LLC. It's
cash or private lending.
Private lending. And so you purchase that property, you rehab it, do everything that we talked about earlier, and then you turn around and now it's rehabbed, it's rented, and so it's cash flowing, and you've got all the documentation, and let's say your spouse has decided, hey, I want a property. Your spouse is not a part of that LLC. That's completely separate. So you can sell that property to your spouse as an individual, and that property now, y'all decide on what you think is a fair market price. You pull your comps. You can sell it at top market value. It does need to appraise because she's getting a loan for this property, or he's getting a loan for that property. And so your spouse is getting a loan for that property. It appraises, and they have to bring
20%.
At least 20%, sometimes 25%, but at least 20% to the table, and they purchase that property from the LLC. So the interesting thing here is, okay, you purchase that property, then we'll go through like a number scenario here in just a second, but you purchase that property, and now as a couple, y'all own this property, the LLC has sold it, has made money on the sale of the property. Yes. Did not have to refi because they sold it just like a flip. So the LLC is basically doing a flip, sold it to somebody else. Well, now they have a cash flow, or sold it to the spouse. Now they have a cash flowing property. The LLC has made its money, but because y'all are a couple, now it's considered, it's looked at from the government tax point of view as a refi, not a flip. So now not only do you have a property.
So you're saying that the government looks at it like a refinance, but the bank who's lending the money looks at it as a purchase.
As a purchase. That's where these two entities have their own rules and regulations.
Right.
And you're following all of those rules and regulations. You're not inflating the property. You're not doing anything illegal. But because the LLC sold it, now it looks like a refi, and you're paying taxes on the income that you're getting, but it looks like a refi, not like capital gains.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. So that's that little sneaky tip, and again, talk to your tax accountant, talk to your attorneys, and make sure, everything's on the up and up. But it's about being completely transparent in this type of scenario. You can sell it to a spouse. It's completely legal.
So, and if you do that, you're getting 20% down. So you're basically getting that refinance loan at 80% loan to value, as opposed to 70% loan to value if you hold it for 6 months, and you can do it instantaneously.
Yes. Yeah, you don't have to wait the 6 months. There's a lot of perks to that. If you've got the cash to go ahead and do it, the perks keep adding up as far as purchasing that property with the LLC.
But I'd love to say that you get good enough at rehabs.
Yeah.
I know that I could do a house in 14 days. Especially if it's in a major city. You go out
the
rural,
rehabs, if you've got the contractors, you can do that.
You can do it in 14 days. And we're not talking about huge houses, because these are rentals.
Exactly.
1,300 square feet. So when you're looking at that going 14 days, you could even borrow hard money.
Yeah. You could borrow hard money for that.
Because if you're holding it and then it's getting refinanced within
within a couple of months, less than 2 months, you've got it rehabbed, you've got it rented, and then the LLC's selling it.
Aren't you starting your sale? If you know you're going to be done.
Oh yeah.
You're going to be done in 2 weeks or even 3 weeks. Okay, well, I'm going to start the sale of this property.
Well, you just need to make sure, because that's the other thing, is if you are not rehabbing, we're talking about experienced.
That's true.
If you're not rehabbing on a regular basis, your anticipation of when that completion date is probably way off. I'm just saying. It's probably way off. You're probably weeks away.
Yes.
And you think it's going to be done in 3 days. But if you've got your systems down, you've got your contractors, what's going on and when that drop dead date is.
And to be fair, 15, 16 years ago, I was a lot younger and a lot hungrier than I am today.
Yeah.
So that same 14 days for me is probably like 3 or 4 months now. Because I'm just like, okay, we'll get to that. That's all good.
Tomorrow.
Mañana. It's margarita time.
Whatever. I know you. There's no way you'd let that get in the way. But anyway, that alone, like just working through that whole strategy and diving deep, I like was it.
Super it also
interested
like mortgage fraud to me. So I'm like, just everybody go consult your attorneys. Don't say, oh yeah, watching Real Estate Divas, they're doing it. No.
Yeah, but it's
but usually you are. You're
yeah, I think that's my net, because I just did the Burr, we're about to buy another. I'm like, well, let's just go ahead. I'm going to consult my we'll do a follow-up.
Yeah, do a follow-up.
Because I definitely want to, this is what I was told, this is how we did it, and we can lay it out just black and white. Obviously I'll still say consult your attorney, consult your tax accountant, but I would like to kind of walk through from A to Z just how we did it. Because this one I like a lot.
I do too. Hey, seriously, 61 doors in 3.5 years. Yep. I love this method for acquiring property, because you can just do it super, super fast.
Well, and real quick, we'll go ahead and go over, Ryan, could you scroll up those notes? Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over just kind of the numbers of if I had done my last Burr this way.
And this would have been yours. These are your numbers.
Awesome. So the last Burr, so the purchase price was $121,000 and a $16,000 rehab. So not bad. We're all in for $137,000, $1,600 a month in rent,
which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean just at those numbers alone.
Yeah, we're good.
And for everybody out there, depending on what market you're in, that is the key. Go find out what market you're in to do a rental. You are looking at, for us, it's been 1-to-1 for a while. Mm-hmm. So if you've got $137,000 rehab, you're getting $1,370 a month in rent. So if you do you purchase and you rehab it and you can get $1,600 a month in rent, that's great.
Yeah.
And so that was my reaction to that, of why that was a good
deal.
And
because one of the things that we've talked about, whenever we're talking about buying rental properties, that's the long game. You're basing that purchase on, it's not the $100 a month that you're getting from that one property.
Right.
It's the fact that this property is going to appreciate, that you're banking that this property is going to continue to appreciate, and I'm going to get equity, and that's how it's going to grow, and then I can turn around and sell this property for way more than what I purchased it for. And the whole time somebody else is making that mortgage payment. So that's what you're banking on. It's not that I get that. I don't know why I have to explain that several times to people whenever we're talking, because they think, oh, I should be making $500 a month on,
I was.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying you can't, but that's not the expectation typically, especially in this market where we are. So,
although, I mean, 137, and I mean, your mortgage payment, your PITI can't be much.
It's not. It's like 900 and
I was
something.
gonna say, I'm like, you got to be making at least $600, $700 a month on this property.
Yeah, this one worked out well. I'm just trying to. I don't want everybody to think that these are the best.
I'm pretty good at math. I'm looking at this going.
Not
you're paying like 30% interest on it.
I'm just saying in general, whenever I'm telling people about rental properties, they're like, I don't want that one because I'm only making $100 a month. And actually, when we had Steve Rosenberg on the show, he talked about that as well, of would you discourage somebody from buying a property if it was only, it's only cash flowing $100 a month, but it's in a great neighborhood, continues to appreciate, stable, blah, blah, blah.
I would, that's a short-term play from somebody who looked really, really awful after in the last recession, when I lost seemingly 50% of my net worth overnight.
Mm-hmm.
That made it really, really hard to swallow.
Yep.
And waiting another 5 to 10 years to get everything back to where it was.
Yeah.
So you just never know. I mean,
well, and the other reason for rental properties is the whole depreciation, the tax write-offs. I mean,
depreciation is nice.
Yeah, especially if you're flipping all the time, and that's what I tell investors, you need something to offset that capital gain. So, I mean, there's reasons for each strategy, but rentals, that's really,
and we've talked about this. Yep. I mean, I went completely the opposite route. I hated my rentals because I had, 61 doors when you're self-managing, you hate your life. It's not you need to have them professionally managed, in my opinion. But when I did that, then I went completely the other way to notes. And then my accountant's like, you need some rental properties to offset some of the stuff that you're doing. Yeah,
so you can take those deductions, you can, otherwise you're just giving that money away. It's kind of like in the contracting business, we have to, the roofing company,
that money
away.
I mean, you just have to, shelter it better.
Yes. But like there's an amount that we have to spend on a yearly basis on vehicles for the roofing business. Yeah. Because otherwise we're going to end up paying that in taxes. Do you want to give it to Uncle Sam, or do you want a new truck?
Or as a small business owner, you can also go and make contributions to your self-directed IRA.
Or that.
There you go.
Which we'll touch on that on another show.
We should probably have a creative tax on how to shelter your assets from the government.
We're just coming up with titles left and right now.
By the way, if you work for the IRS, my taxes are spot on in line. So please leave me alone.
Yeah. So with those numbers, let's say, okay, here's the property that, all in, I'm $137,000 in. And the new appraised value is, and this is just for, an example, I think probably that property would appraise for more like 180 right now, just because I didn't go higher end. If I had put some granite in there, then we would be closer to the 200 mark. But anyway, so. And
by the way, you don't necessarily have to follow this, but I always put granite into my low end kind of ghetto rehabs. And the reason for that was because it's very hard to destroy granite.
It
Whereas
is.
it's very easy to burn like a Formica countertop. So even though it called for Formica, I found this super cheap granite place, and they would throw in granite for a little bit more than the cost
Of Formica. Yeah. And if your countertop space is about the size of a freaking kitchen table,
Yes.
then, we're not talking about a lot.
Yeah. When you've got those tiny kitchens that you're going to find in those small rental properties, and let's be honest, do you really care what color it is? No, you don't. You get the little basic speckle one. Yeah, you can pick it up cheap.
Yep. So let's say that it appraised for $200,000. Your spouse is bringing the closing of $50,000. I said $50,000 because I did more of the closing cost and everything, 20% plus $50,000. And the LLC is all in for $137,000. The profit would be $63,000. And so here you are with $63,000, but you got to remember your spouse, had to pay that $50,000. So now you're paying yourself back for that $50,000. So the LLC only makes $13,000 net. And I say only because for some people that may seem like pennies, all that work for $13,000, but no, you get $13,000, and now you have a house that's been refied in less than 6 months, and none of your original money is in that property, and you made $13,000. And you're not claiming it as capital gains.
And if you're cash flowing $600, $700 a month, that's not nothing. I mean, you're talking at $600 a month, you're talking $7,200 a year. So really, within the first year of you owning that, you've made $20 grand on that house. But then you have another $7,000 a month in perpetuity.
Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. Like I said, we'll do a follow-up for sure, because I definitely want to, I'm going to dive a little deeper into this.
It is. It's a great way to acquire property.
Really and truly, what's so funny to me is all the time, people ask us our advice or ask us for our opinion on something.
Right.
And yeah, we know we're familiar with or have done several different strategies, but we're always learning. And part of that's because, things are always changing, money's changing, regulations are changing, the creativity that you've got to do out there.
Hey, Ryan Harper and I, not Ryan Sharper, Ryan Harper.
Harper!
Ryan Harper and I had a conversation about this on Passing Notes just 2 days ago on Wednesday. And it's shocking to me how a decade goes by and people don't remember, and the banking regulations soften. And right now, FHA loans got down to, in some cases, sub 550 and sub 500 credit scores. And that's on government insured loans.
Yep.
Which staggers me, because what FHA equals is subprime. Mm-hmm. It never went away. They just said, hey, we're FHA now, and we'll buy your loan regardless if you meet this criteria. And they just kept lowering it, what their credit requirements were to buy more loans. Mm-hmm. It's insane.
So, just so, like, if this was news to anybody out there watching, it's you just need to be open to always learning.
Well, really and always knowing that it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. And if you know that everything's evolving and changing, yes, you might be told no for your refinance today, but in next month, or say January,
or
you go in, you're going to hear that you're going to hear a yes, because they're going to go, oh yeah, we can do that now.
And then there's also because I went through my own personal refi. That was a nightmare, but I was told no twice because we hit COVID and everybody stopped lending money like immediately. But I was denied twice, saying we don't do those type of cash out refis anymore, and then got referred to somebody who does. So sometimes that first no just means next. Just go to the next person.
I tell everyone that.
Yeah.
Write down 10 people you're going to call. go see them all. Don't stop after your first no going, oh, everybody's going to tell me now.
Yeah. I mean, that's just like when you're cold calling. That first no just means, hey, that's one less no I have to hear today.
Right.
Got that one out of the way. And
No,
next.
absolutely.
Yeah. But anyway, it's just kind of encouraging. And I always get excited when I learn something new. I'm like, oh, wow, that's a nice little tidbit.
Well, so go out and try the Burr Method. The first time I did it, this is how I learned how to finance real estate. And I fell into it
Back-asswards.
Back-asswards.
You said that more than once. Yeah.
You know, and that was just, I bought this house for not very much money. I think $8,500.
Oh
And I went, I don't know, put 5 to 10 into it, went to Bank of America and said, oh, I've got this house. It's being rented for $750 a month. And what will you give me on it? And she goes, oh, yeah, we'll lend you $35,000 on it. I go, oh, no. I only put like $16,000 into it. She goes, right. And we're going to lend you $35,000 on it.
It's like, are you listening to me? Like, shh.
And I literally bought that house with a credit card. I bought it with like the check.
Yeah.
For the credit card, right?
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah. No, so I'm like, it looked like I paid cash for it.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm like, okay, I got all this. I'm going to pay off this credit card. And now I've got all this other cash to go reinvest.
Yeah. That's pretty back-asswards.
It's back-asswards. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Can I do this again?
Yeah. How many times can I do this?
How many times can I do it? Can I find other neighborhoods where this works?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd go neighborhood to neighborhood. And I'd find one and I'd like pick it clean.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd move down the road, find a different neighborhood where it would work.
Nice.
Where I could pick them up cheap enough and get them to refinance at what I needed them to.
Yep. Nice.
To make it worth my while.
Well, if y'all have any questions, about the Burr Method, or like I said earlier, or like we were asking earlier, if you have somebody you want to recommend for the refi for Burr that is not government backed and could maybe get somebody out of one of those either hard money or private money lenders a little sooner so that they're not having to wait the whole 6 months, drop that in the comments, share.
Yeah. Because honestly, that's the whole game changer.
Really and truly.
How fast you can do it.
Yep.
Because otherwise, yeah, you are going to have money tied up there, or you're going
you
to
will
be
have
paying
money tied up.
higher interest rates than would be prudent.
Yep. So you want to do your due diligence, and like I said, it's you want to plan from the get-go, because the margin of error is a lot smaller in this one, or your allowed margin of error is a lot smaller in this one, just because you need to have that exit strategy in place, and you're depending on another bank to give you what it's worth, and you don't want that much money tied up in the property.
And to be fair, it's not like you're really losing money.
No, I mean, you still have the property. It's just tied up.
It's just,
you just can't get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is how you get all of your pennies back.
Yeah, we want all the pennies back.
All the pennies back. Every single penny back to be able to go do it again.
Yep. That's the repeat.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, be sure to like and subscribe and share.
And comment.
And comment if you have any questions.
Find us on Real Estate Divas on YouTube. We will be sharing out that link. We're getting subscribers.
Woo!
I know, it's so great. It's so fun.
Ryan's shaking his head.
Ryan's
He's like, oh my
rolling
goodness.
His eyes. He's like, okay. Yeah.
You got 2 new ones. We celebrate each one.
I know. I was excited to see. I'm like, who's this guy?
We pop a bottle of champagne for each and every one.
That's true.
That's true.
Thanks for watching today, you guys. Be sure to join us next time. I'm Jaylee Thompson with Texel Real Estate.
And I'm Kristen Kurst with Capricorn Mortgage.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.